Thank you, members. So, Burda, good morning. I'd like to welcome everyone to this hybrid meeting of Council. The Council meeting is being broadcast live over the internet and will be available to view online now and in the future. We welcome the use of the Welsh language at meetings. I've had no requests for people to speak Welsh today, so this meeting will be conducted in English only. Members in the chamber, please be aware that we are all on camera and you may be visible on screen when people around you are speaking. And please remember to speak clearly into your microphones. Members participating remotely, can you please refrain from using the chat function and instead use the raised hand icon to indicate whether you want to speak. Please remember to keep your microphones muted when you're not talking. So moving on to the agenda. Agenda item 1, Democratic Services will be making a note of members' attendance in the meeting, but should you lose connection, could you possibly leave a comment in the chat bar on your return to ensure that this is picked up. Agenda item 2, apologies for absence. Dominique, have we had any apologies, please?
I've had apologies from Councillors Catherine Bonera, Ron Burnett, Elizabeth Haynes, Mark Jones, Mandy Owen and Nicholas Simons.
Thank you. Agenda item 3, declarations of interest. Stella Harris, Monitoring Officer and Assistant Chief Legal Officer. Have you any advice for members, please?
Thank you, Presiding Member. In relation to agenda item number 9, which is the Green Meadow Community Farm, my advice is that you will have an interest if you have any association with the farm. For example, if anyone with whom you have a close personal association works at the farm. Also, with regard to agenda item number 11, which relates to the adult recreation facilities on land to the northwest of Llantarnam Primary School, my advice, again, is you have an interest if you have any association with Torfaen Leisure Trust. I'm aware that Councillor Stephen Evans is on the shadow board of the Green Meadow Community Farm. It's a council appointment, so it's a personal interest only. If I can ask Councillor Evans to confirm that interest.
Yes, I do confirm.
Thank you. And the leader is a council-appointed trustee on the Torfaen Leisure Trust. Again, that's a personal interest only. If I can ask the leader to confirm that interest.
Yeah, confirm that. Thank you.
Thank you. At the moment, I'm also aware that Councillor Stewart Ashley will have an interest in relation to Green Meadow Community Farm. He's not here at the moment, Presiding Member, but he should be advised. He'll be advised to declare their interest if he joins the meeting prior to that item being discussed. Thank you.
Thank you, Dana. Agenda item 4, the confirmation of council minutes. These are starting on page 5, and the council minutes of the 26th of July 2022. Members, could you possibly state whether you have anything to raise in relation to the minutes? If not, I will take them as approved. Say anything? Thank you. I'll take those as approved. Agenda item 5, update on actions. Members, the update on what has been done to implement our previous decisions start on page 17 on the agenda. Could you possibly indicate whether you have any questions or comments, please? Members, do you agree to note the update on actions? Thank you very much. They noted. Agenda item 6, receipt of petitions. There are no petitions today, which takes us to agenda item 7, public question time. There is one public question today. Mr. Davis is unable to attend this morning, so I will ask the question on his behalf. And the question is from Mr. Philip Davis, and it's to be answered by Councillor Joanne Gordon, the Executive Member for Economy, Skills and Regeneration. It is required that all councillors have read the Wellbeing of Future Generations Wales Act 2015 in full? If not, Why is this not the case, given all decisions that Council makes should be guided by it? I am concerned that both now completed building sites built after the Act was passed into law and future plans the Council have go against the Resilient Wales goal, Indicator 43, area of healthy ecosystems and Indicator 44, biodiversity, among others included in the Act. Thank you. Councillor Jordan.
Thank you, Presiding Member. Thank you to Mr Davies for the question and for taking the time to present the question to Council today, which demonstrates their level of passion to protect our natural environment. The Wellbeing of Future Generations Act requires public bodies in Wales to think about the long-term impact of their decisions. The Act gives a legally binding purpose through the 7 goals and details the way public bodies should work through the 5 ways of working. As Mr Davies has asked about the building sites, I'm going to outline how the planning process embeds the requirements of the Act. At national level, Welsh Government publish planning policy. This includes Future Wales and technical advice notes. At a local level, the Council has to be in accordance with these policies through its own local development plan and through our supplementary planning guidance. These local policies are used to make a decision on planning applications for new development by both the Planning Committee and through the Council's delegation scheme. Councillors are advised by professional council officers when they make planning and other decisions, and are provided with reports which cover all of the relevant considerations and legislations they require to make informed decisions, therefore embedding the requirements of the Act in how the Council considers the impact of building proposals. In addition, training is provided for members through seminars and workshops to make sure that they are aware of all the relevant information necessary to make new decisions on new developments. Can I say as well, as Mr Davies isn't here, I'm happy to contact him to see if he's got any further questions or to see if he wants to have a site meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gordon. Takes us to agenda item 8, announcements of the Leader or Chief Exec. Leader, do you have any announcements, please?
Thank you, Presiding Member. First of all, can I thank Rose for her tribute as Presiding Member to our late Queen. Can I also thank members and staff for their efforts in ensuring appropriate procedures and memorials were followed and that succession arrangements were carried out. Secondly, after 10 years of Chief Executive of Pontypool RFC, Ben Jeffries announced that he's stepping down. The club has come a long way in that time, both on and off the pitch. We're rightly proud of our famous rugby history in Pontypool, and I'd like to pay my respects to the late Eddie Butler, Pool legend, of course, who recently passed away. But Pool are important to our future too, both as a club at the pinnacle of our local rugby pyramid and as a focal point for wider recognition of Pontypool and regeneration. So in thanking everyone involved in sport in our borough, I'd like to offer Ben a small token of our appreciation for his work at Pooler and wish him all the best for the future. Do you want to come down, Ben?
Well done, and thank you. Thank you, Leader. Is there anything else you want to say? No, thank you. Chief Exec?
No, nothing else for me to add, thank you.
Thank you. That takes us to agenda item 9, which is the Green Meadow Community Farm Rejuvenation for a New Era, page 19. Ember Cambridge Stacey, Senior Management, Building Resilient Communities. Could you deliver the report, please? Is Emma here?
I'm here, yes,
Online.
I'm here. Good
Thank
morning,
you.
everybody. I'm actually presenting on behalf of Dave Leach today as he's unable to attend. Alongside me is Colin Newell, who's been appointed to produce the commercial operating model, and he will also be helping me answer questions if they are detailed and needing an extra response. So I'll just talk you through the key messages for Green Meadow Community Farm. As you know, it's a valuable community resource, inspiring generations of school children and attracting tens of thousands of visitors each year. But it doesn't currently focus effort on investment to tap into its full potential for a visitor attraction. The Council committed, in principle, £500,000 of capital expenditure to help develop a more sustainable commercial operating model for Green Meadow Farm. The farm is currently operating at a substantial loss. In 2018, which were our last full year financial figures before the pandemic, we ended the year at a loss of £298,000. In March 2022, officers appointed COR Transformation Limited. The lead contact has decades of extensive experience in leading and running a commercial tourism attraction in the private sector. Colin has been appointed to develop the business case for the capital expenditure that will enable the farm to operate commercially. This report presents the business case for that investment and the impact on income and expenditure that will result. The preferred option is to create an all-weather offer that can significantly increase the length of time that people will stay at the farm and the number of opportunities for the farm to generate additional income, such as outdoor adventure activities, soft play, food and beverage. Delivering this proposal is forecast to cost over £1.7 million. A full breakdown of the cost is within this report. The preferred option will be accompanied by changes to the farm structure and operating model to maximise the income. It's forecast by year one, the farm will no longer require underpinning from reserves. By year two, it will no longer require a base budget contribution. And by year three, it will be capable of repaying the investment in itself. There is a summary of figures within the key messages within the report, and the summary of this investment just moves us from a position of a loss of 298,000 in year 2018 to a substantial profit of 295,000. This proposal requires a significant increase in revenues, particularly in years 2 and 3. To mitigate the risk of this income not arising, the expenditure increases the preferred option as a phased in gradually. If these proposals are approved, the farm will need to close from autumn 22 to spring 23 to enable the work to take place. This will result in an overspend in 2022-23, and high-level projections suggest that this will be just over £500,000, which is a cost overrun in 2022-23. In summary, this report sets out the business case for the investment to Green Meadow Community Farm that will enable the farm to operate as a viable business without subsidy. I'm just opening to any questions.
Thank you, Emma. Are there any questions, members? Fiona? Councillor Cross.
As the exec member for this portfolio, it's been quite a journey, and I want to thank officers first. I mean, this council, it was in the last term, but at the end of the last term, this council appointed officers to go off and find a viable business case. I do believe this is what they've come back with, but they haven't just come up with a viable business case. They've given you a number of options throughout the report. It's thorough, it explores all the options, but it's also bold and exciting, and it gives us a real opportunity to allow the farm to stand on its own 2 feet, but not just that, to actually start being able to invest in itself and potentially other services. We've got Colin here that could answer anything. I mean, he's eaten and slept the farm, eaten, slept and breathed the farm since he's been with us. So he knows the ins and outs of the details of this and has a great experience in this background. So I just really want to stress that I think this is a good plan. There is no cost option, and there is no piecemeal option either. But like you say, bold, exciting, and makes me want to go on a zip wire and soft play even.
Thank you, Councillor Cross. Are there any questions? Councillor Alan Slade.
Thank you, Madam Presiding Member. I recall the budget of 2019 being particularly controversial. not least because council tax payers were faced with a rise of almost 6%. We were told at the time that savings had to be made to achieve a balanced budget, and tough choices had to be made. One of those choices was to cut £200,000 from the community farm budget, specifically from the social services budget. I recall being told that if we didn't make this saving, social workers and teachers' jobs were at stake. Now, welcome as this report is, and I shall certainly be supporting it, given the magnitude of the U-turn on this, could I still lead what lessons have been learned by the executive going forward to future budget setting?
Chair, is it okay for me to come in?
Yes, please.
Thank you. I have learned a great deal with being in this portfolio, and as you'll note, communities and social services are distinctly separate now. I think that it has a new direction, it has new energy, but ultimately it has a team of people now that can focus on that. So whereas the community farm used to be in the social services portfolio, now it's in Dave Leach's portfolio, and that's getting a distinct identity of its own, and it's moving at pace. And I also think this is a reflection of that work. I mean, the work that's been put in a real short time. Because I do appreciate that I've been elected since, well, 2008, which is 14 years, more than 14 years. I've seen so many different iterations of how we're going to help the farm, but this is the first time that I can say with real confidence that I think that this could really get it on its feet, stop divesting, invest in the things that we want our children, our grandchildren to enjoy in our local communities. So I hope that answers your question in the sense of what have I learned to be able to focus on the farm on its own, essentially, rather than against those mitigations.
I think you're sort of a little bit confused because I support this, and I never felt that the £200,000 cut was realistic unless we were going to close it. I'm just saying it was a bad choice then to recommend the £200,000 cut. What's changed? I mean, you must have appreciated the love, if you like, that the community farm generates. You must have realised that before this budget cut was announced, yet Cabinet agreed it, Council agreed it, well, those that voted for it. So what I'm trying to say is, the budget was consulted on back in 2019. Something's gone awry, because this cut was put forward, agreed, and yet, very quickly, it's been about turn. And mitigate savings of 200,000 for that year never happened. And since though, and the subsequent years, that saving hasn't been met. So we've already sort of lost, well, not lost, but £800,000. Just seems a little odd. And that's really the question. What has been learned? It was obviously consulted upon the budget, yet the cut was still made. It was decided upon. Have we learned anything going forward? But next year's budget, perhaps?
Okay, it still comes down to the same answer. Before, when it came into my portfolio, and I believe that was around 2019, that it was under the social services portfolio. Whereas I don't believe at that time it was getting as much attention as it needed. But in addition to that, I'd also say that there's been a political movement to be able to support the farm, and we've also done works in that time. So it says in the report about Ignite going in, doing customer discussions, testing, seeing what people want. So people did, push out that message to us very loudly that they don't want it to be shut. Now, I'm all for democracy, and I'm here to listen to the people. So this council voted to be able to keep the farm and not to shut it, and that wasn't my intention anyway. But also then it means that officers have gone away with a very clear understanding of exactly what we need to do, and that is what this is today. So I appreciate the past might not have been, in retrospect, the ideal way forward, but it was a case of managing budgets, managing those issues at the time, and this is now what we have, and this is what we're discussing today, is what we're going to do. You've already said that you support it, and I'm really delighted to hear that, so thank you. And that's an exciting way forward, really. So,
Dave Thomas, you want to come in?
Yes, thank you, Madam Presiding Member. 4.4.8. How confident are we that the visitor numbers are achievable?
Can I just start off answering that question? All the figures within this report, as Councillor Cross has just explained, has been produced by somebody with extensive experience in this field. Colin will know the ins and outs of all the details within those figures, and I will hand over to him to answer that question. But I am reassured that the amount of work that's gone into these figures, and I do think, having looked at them, they are quite conservative. So there is opportunities to increase that income. But let me just hand over to Colin to expand on that answer.
Colin.
Thank you. So we have been very conservative in the numbers. So in the first year going forwards, when we open, we're actually forecasting a lower level footfall than we were achieving previously in 2018-19. And we've done that deliberately so that we don't over-regulate. There's going to be a lot of new attraction being based at the farm and lots of different things to do. That over the first 12-18 months, we don't know precisely where we'll be in 12-18 months' time, but that will grow the footfall on the farm generally. So from years 2 and 3, the increased footfall coming into the farm from all of this new development is what will uplift the figures. But first and foremost, when we open, we're actually forecasting a low level of footfall.
Thank you for that. Lady, you wanted to come in?
Yeah, thank you, Presiding Member. I had one question about point 3.4, I think, in the report, which is the paragraph about the consultation work that was done about customer wishes, and I just wondered if I could hear a bit more about that. I just wanted to say a couple of things as well. I think, the experience we've had over the last 4 years is that, as Fiona said, half measures won't work for the farm. It needs to be a full-blown attempt at making it able to wash its face in revenue terms. And I think this is, as Fiona said, a really exciting opportunity for it to do that. So I look forward to that coming through, because the only 3 options are either to close it, to continue subsidising it year on year, or to try and give it a future where it can not rely on that subsidy in the same way. In terms of the forecasts, I think it's important for us all to support the farm, to help it reach and exceed those forecasts. The more we as local people use it, the more we as a council support it through our different departments as well, social care, schools, and utilise the farm really as a central part of not just being a visitor attraction, but also part of our narrative about how we talk about sort of activity, how we talk about the story of food production, things like that in our borough as well, how we talk about the story of climate change and our attempts to mitigate that and reduce our carbon footprints. I think the farm can be central to all those things in a way that will be both beneficial to the local area and will benefit the farm. One last question. One of my concerns, as someone who's used the farm lots with my children in the past when they were younger, is how we make sure that families who live around the farm, who maybe haven't got a lot of money, especially at the moment, how we make sure that they can come into the farm as well and not be priced out of it. So 2 questions really. One is about the community engagement, the consultation work, and the other is how are we going to make sure that families who live around the farm can be part of it and can make sure they can afford to go there too.
Okay, thank you. So the first question, we did actually appoint a consultancy firm called Ignite to come in and look at what the customer journey was. We looked at the personas of our customers, what they wanted from the farm. We did quite a lot of research and did market research of, what the farm offered, what it could potentially offer in the future. And it was very apparent to us that our local residents within Torvine are the ones that mainly support the farm. Thousands of people per year just come to the farm, even though a lot of the comments that we did get back were things like that, within a couple of hours the farm journey is completed. It's not really a day out, it's more just for a couple of hours. There isn't any offer to support families with young children with play activities outdoors, because obviously if it rains and our current climate doesn't accommodate something as an attraction for families to come to the farm. The school trips as well, we recognise that a lot of our own schools weren't utilising the farm as much, and there was a reason for that. Again, the same kind of reasons. The farm wasn't offering enough that it wasn't reaching its full potential. But there was what we did learn from that piece of work. There's such a will to support the farm. People have grown. I'm sure yourselves, you've all recognised what the farm offers, but it doesn't. Throughout this report, we keep on talking about its full potential, and it's got such potential, but it needs that investment for it to reach its full potential. And we want to be able to support the schools in Torfaen and local areas. And we wanted them to come not just for the farming experience, but as a visitor attraction as well. So that work hasn't been wasted. We did a hell of a lot of work, and all that work has fed into where we are today. And I think this is a really strong proposal for us to be able to produce something where we can all be proud of, we can bring families to, and it will be also a tourist attraction on top of that. I hope that answers the first question. The second question, the one thing I do know, under my normal hat of my work, is that we've got an extensive support for supporting people in poverty and families and young children. We invest in a hell of a lot of money across the council to make sure that our families that are suffering in poverty are supported. Now, what we would like to do as part of this business plan is to work with all our programmes, to work with all our projects, to ensure that those families that might want to go to the farm can be supported to do so. And if that means that we invest in that family to have a year pass, then we invest in that family to have a year pass for the farm. We don't want to isolate anybody, but it is a commercial operating model. So there are options, and we are looking at including within the business case, and I'm sure Colin will explain, to make sure that we recognise that where the people are that actually want to come to the farm but might not be able to afford it, and we will support them to be able to do that. And if that's not through our projects that we've got in existence at the moment, then we will make sure that we can accommodate that within the business plan. Colin, do you want to expand any more on that?
Thank you, Emma. I'll just add a little bit of support to Emma's first point, just for assurance for you, that you didn't waste the Ignite works. All of the customer survey elements were picked up there. The feedback from what people have wanted, and that engagement was incorporated into the development of the style of visitor attraction and operation, and how the farm will evolve as well in future, the style of types of animals, and the engagement, particularly with a broader range of schools. So none of that work was lost, and it has been built into this plan. So that wasn't a wasted exercise at all. In terms of the poorer families, the low-income families, harder to reach people, the systems and solutions that we're putting in are designed around developing a much deeper bond with the local community. So we will have the ability to identify who everybody is. Everybody will have a loyalty style card which will identify them. And what that will give us as council the ability to do is to pre-identify people. If come May, it's a really tough time and things are really biting, and we want to support and attract people, you have those two opportunities to do it. One is directly through the other council services Emma's just described, but separately on the commercial side, we can front load discounts to people that we identify as low-income families or hard-to-reach families that need that support. So when they come to buy anything through the door, they would be charged at the price that we could directly target them with, enabling the rest of the business to operate completely normally in its normal commercial model. But the people that we needed to target, we will be able to identify them up front with no embarrassment, just with a card, and that will charge them at the appropriate rates.
Thank you very much, Ron. Did you want to come in? Yeah.
I won't actually fully summarise. I don't think there's a need. As I said, that the report was really thorough and excellent. Oh, does Dave, I'll come in at the end if you wanted to come in first.
Councillor Williams.
Thank you very much, Madam Presiding Officer. Just a couple of points and observations, really following on from some of the things that the leader said, and one or two others. First is that, I hope that there will be the opportunity. I have to say, first of all, I'm right behind this. Up front. Second is sort of say that I hope that there will be a close look at what the opportunities are with the more peripheral elements of the farm, because the focus is on the core, so that we can look at biodiversity and looking at some of our green objectives. So I hope that isn't lost. The second point is to sort of say that it's a small observation, admittedly, but the map on page 24 still shows the police training college. So there is now a closer neighbourhood here, and I think we just need to make sure that they're aware of potential impact. And finally, it would be helpful to know whether the Farm Shadow Board is actually in support of this, because obviously they're the people who've been involved for some time. Thank you.
Can I just... Sorry.
Just a moment, the leader's coming in.
Just wanted to follow on from that, really. There's some good points that David makes about, green objectives. If you look at sort of recovery post-COVID, use of the outdoors and physical activities, getting people out and active is a key thing. The story of food production and climate change, I think, is a key narrative, and the story about community engagement and getting people engaged. I think the farm can play a big part of all three of those. The other point I was going to ask about was, if you look at successful areas in terms of attracting visitors, they have an interlinked narrative between different parts of their offer. And I think one of the things that we haven't had in the past is how does the farm link with our canal? How does the farm link with our World Heritage Site in Blenavon? How do all those things link together so that there's a combined offer that will get people to travel from further afield to do a number of things in Torvine? And I think the more we can offer that interlinked thing, the more we'll attract people not only to the farm, but also to places like Big Pit, to Blenavon, to the canal, and to the other attractions that we've got in the borough.
Thank you, Leader. Any other comments? Yes, Councillor Jones.
Thanks, Chair. I totally agree with what Councillor Hunter said, linking up with all the historic sites and for education. Is it now a case that we should consider having a tourism officer to link up with all these potential projects?
Who would like to answer that? Leader?
Certainly our efforts on the issue of tourism is something that we're looking into at the moment. Maybe we can have a report back to Council on that in future meetings.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks, Councillor Hunt.
Thank you very much. Any other comments?
Thank you, Chair. Dave, Councillor Williams, thank you for your comments there. The green and biodiversity side of things is something very close to my heart, so I appreciate what you're saying. It's a really good point that you make with the map. I just looked at the extent, because the idea of the map going in was to show the extent of the site, and also that then leads on to the opportunities, because as it says in the report, it's been focused in a very specific area, but the site is quite wide. So absolutely, really good point. The estate that is now on the old police college, we would definitely be, as always, consulting with our communities. So thank you for that. I've said about the opportunities for the future. There's been lots of discussions about what we can do, but I think ultimately this is about getting on its feet first. Let's get this done. Let's make sure that it's got money to invest in itself to go forward with. That's not to say that I won't always be ambitious and looking for more. So really good points. And yeah, thank you for your support, Janet, and also your suggestion there. I love the history of Torvine. I love the history of my local area, and it is absolutely rich in that culture that we need to hang on to. And this could be that little gem, that tourism that it brings into our communities and then leads off in other directions. Lastly, I'll just bring up one of the things I've been quite passionate about, and as you'll see, it's in the report. There is also an opportunity to create a Changing Places toilet on the site. Additional funding would be used, which could be one of those opportunities we looked at in the future, but I think in terms of accessibility and inclusion, that would also be something I would hope that we would be really striving towards. So thank you very much, members, for the debate.
Thank you very much, Councillor Cross, and thank you, officers. Can I just say, as one of the elected members that lives not too far from the farm, I think this is a really exciting report, and it's about time we had some investment. So thank you very much for your work, and thank you, members, for the debate. And thank you, Emma. And Colin. And Colin. I did thank Colin, yes. Can I say the recommendations are on page 35 of the report. Can I ask members whether they agree with the recommendations? Are there any members against the recommendations? Are there any members who would like to abstain? That's unanimous, carried. Thank you very much. Agenda item 10, the solar farm, way forward, page 45. Rachel Jowett, Chief Officer Neighbourhoods, Planning and Public Protection, could you deliver the report for us, please?
Thank you, Madam Presiding Member. Good morning, members. In January 2020, just before COVID hit, Council gave approval for the solar farm prudential borrowing financial strategy, following approval at Cabinet earlier that month for the procurement strategy for the development of a solar farm at the old Teacork landfill site. This was following a review at Clean Air Scrutiny, which had also endorsed the scheme. This was a bold and innovative project which had the potential to be a major contributor to the declared climate emergency, as well as providing a positive financial return to the authority. As the report outlines, in March 2021, recognising the project was delayed due to COVID and subsequent market conditions, the tender was issued. A preferred bidder was identified and approved in June 2021. And that report for the approved bidder showed that the scheme was viable, commercial, and actually gave a greater financial return to the authority than initially forecast. Over the autumn-winter of 21-22, the preferred bidder proposed changes to the construction methodology which caused us considerable concern, and these are outlined in paragraph 4.1 of the report. Most importantly, the proposals were not compliant with the biodiversity management strategy. The approved planning permission caused delays to the agreement for connection with Western Power, and more than likely would have turned the project from a positive financial position to a negative. Therefore, all contract negotiations were instructed to halt whilst this worked through. I asked the Welsh Government Energy Service, who had first identified this site as one of the few sites in Torfaen Council ownership as an opportunity for renewable energy, to undertake an informal assessment on the proposed way forward and also to look at the approach taken by the Council. The findings are outlined in paragraph 4.2. And this identified that if the Council wanted to explore the reasonableness of the preferred bidder's revised strategy, then further investment would have to be required into site investigations. Due to the delays by the preferred contractor and due to construction works at Uskmouth, the connection agreement with Western Power is not able to be taken forward and has now been withdrawn. This means that even a feasible scheme could not now connect into the national grid until 2027 at the earliest. The report does outline that we have spent money taking the project forward, and I do fully appreciate and realise that this is public money. In line with policy and with full council approval, we have tried to do the right thing. This time, market conditions have not worked in favour for us. In terms of the future, if we are able to, and without incurring any further cost, we can explore a way forward and then the project could be reviewed. Therefore, this report proposes the project is withdrawn and not taken forward at this time. Thank you, and happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Rachel. Are there any questions from any members? Councillor David Thomas.
Thank you, Madam Presiding Member. In the scrutiny meeting in June 2018, and again in full council 2020, members, including myself, expressed grave concerns over the business model of the solar farm and felt that the figures for this were too much on a knife edge for this project to succeed. These opinions were ignored. The Chief Officer instead insisted that the figures were conservative and not optimistic. £259,956 of Torfaen taxpayers' money have been spent on this project with nothing to show for it, and it is wishful thinking in the extreme to think that this project will ever be viable in the future. At what point does this Labour-led council take responsibility for the loss of over £250,000 of Torboyne taxpayers' money? Who is going to make a public apology, and how are we going to get this money back?
You want to come in, Rachel? That's some political points there as well. So, Leader, do you want to come in as well?
If I think so. The report outlines, there was always on the risk register that this was something we were trying to do. We're not the first council in Wales or across the UK to take forward a solar farm, either on a landfill site. Our neighbouring authorities have managed to do it successfully. The business case did stack up at the time based on the information and also the soft market testing we had. And as I said, our preferred bidder, their tender was fully compliant with our requirements and showed the scheme to be viable, and that's the report of June 2021. The preferred bidder, who I can't name because we're in an open forum, then changed their method statement. Believe you me, I had no intention of bringing forward a scheme which I did not believe in or thought would not be viable or feasible for the council. We were trying to be innovative and bold, and I'm deeply sorry that this is the report that has come forward today. It's not what I want to have on my watch. And hopefully, we've learnt lessons in terms of taking it forward. Feedback from the Welsh Government Energy Service is that now the market has changed, particularly with panel providers which are manufactured primarily in China. They want big schemes, not small schemes. And that, given what we've got and what we know of the geo investigations, extra money would have to be incurred for us to review if it was the right way forward, and we have deemed that is not the best use of council resources.
Data, did you want to make any points?
Yeah, we declared a climate emergency. We are not going to meet the requirements of that promise unless we take some risks. So yes, I regret that this has happened in the way it has. I think the timeline is important. It's not that the original case was not viable, it's that changes were then made subsequent to us agreeing and that have made it not viable. But I think, reading the report, the only logical choice is to put a stop to this now, rather than continue it any further, and hope that conditions change in the future to make things come about at another time. But had this information come about before we made a decision, I think that would be a very valid point. But unfortunately, new information, changes to the project came forward after the council made the decisions, and so I think it's the logical thing to take this step now. Is this an ideal situation? No, and I am sorry that it's come about in this way. But I don't think we're going to meet the requirements of, renewable energy, of carbon reduction, unless we're prepared to take some risks. And I think this was a valid one at the time.
Thank you, Leader. Councillor David Thomas, do you want to come back in?
Yeah, thanks for that, Madam Presiding Member. I've got a few other questions, but before that, the question I asked was who's going to make a public apology and how are we going to get this money back? And nobody's said anything. No, nobody's said that at all. Is anyone going to make a public apology for the fact that we've spent £259,956 on something that's not going to happen?
I think that's already been explained in the answers, at the time.
So nobody's going to make a public apology? Okay, that's fine. I'll move on with some more questions then, if that's okay, Madam Presiding Member. Paragraph 3.3 reports that in March 2021, which is after the worst of the pandemic, the contractor was proposing an income of £63,744 per year over a 35-year period after borrowing costs. In paragraph 4.1b states that in less than a year, the project outcomes had turned from a positive to a negative. Firstly, I'd like to know what happened. Some reasons must have been given for this turnaround because, in my experience, contractors don't suddenly put a £2.5 million project at risk without good reason. So please tell us what those reasons were.
Thank you, Councillor Thomas. Within the report, yes, Councillor, paragraph 3.3 summarises the tender submission and the outcome which led to the preferred bidder being identified. And then paragraph 4.1 talks about the negotiations that were then ongoing over that period. We didn't obviously sign preferred bidder immediately. You have to undertake certain negotiations prior to contract close. And that is when the preferred bidder, who had been out on site prior to tender submission, then proposed to change their methodology for construction, which, as the report outlines in paragraph 4.1, did not comply with planning permission approval and the biodiversity mitigation requirements. They wanted to change their method. That involved then they wanted to vary the contractual prices, and that is what has led to this report today. Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel. Have you finished with your questions, Councillor Thomas? Councillor Williams is waiting to come in.
Well, you can ask. I got one more, but if you want to ask, is that okay? You may as well get me out of the way, and then I'm done then. Paragraph 4.3. Given the above, the current constraints of the site and the need for further expenditure is proposed to close this project. So what were the constraints of the site?
As I outlined, if we wanted to test what the preferred bidder was saying about the geological investigations, we would have to undertake further assessments over and above what we've done already to assess the reasonableness of their requests, and that's where we determined that we would not be prepared to put any further funding into this project.
Councillor Williams.
Thank you, Madam Presiding Officer. 2 points, really. First was just to sort of say that I think, the argument is unanswerable. We tried, things have changed, we have to go with that. I'm glad to see that there is proposed suggestion to sort of, if you like, keep this learning, look at potential opportunities, and I echo the points that the leader said. I suppose my primary concern is at 4.2D, which is where it's saying that Western Power have additionally confirmed there cannot be a grid connection until 2027. This is surely a very major constraint on any renewable energy development in this South East Wales region. And is there not a case perhaps for this council and others to put some pressure on Welsh Government to highlight that this is going to make it very difficult to achieve net zero targets in this part of South East Wales, and will put a very difficult position in terms of any further development, which I, for one, would like to see us explore in the future.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. That sounds a sensible.
Update, Councillor Williams. Yeah, this is a significant concern, as you can see, not only for ourselves, but our neighbours, Monmouthshire and Newport as well. What happens is that schemes and projects apply to the bid, apply to the grid, sorry, get my teeth in, apply to the grid to, on the back of their proposed renewable energy schemes or projects which they are forecasting to take through, and then Western Power then enter into agreement with you that you have to then have planning by a certain time scale, etc., to commit to that grid. They're saying their pipeline is full. Uskmouth is having a new connection built at the moment, and that is what's causing the constraint on the grid. We've raised this with Welsh Government Energy Service, who are looking to coordinate at this time and offer some meeting for us to understand the proposals and the timeline across the three councils. And then I think I'd also echo and support then that that's followed up potentially with political engagement, because it is causing us concern, not only in terms of our own public schemes and projects, but also that whole transition, particularly for businesses who then may want to be doing different things. And we are also aware of some significant opportunities which the private sector are wanting to bring forward as well, which would help the whole community approach, the 2050 target, not just the 2030 target. And also it's about us understanding when they're upgrading the capacity at Uskmouth, how far is that capacity then going to allow us to go? And at the moment, we don't know.
Thank you, Rachel. Councillor Hunt, you want to...
Yeah, just to agree to that suggestion, I'm more than happy to write to Western Power to seek that that discussion further. I know, colleague councils across South East Wales would be happy, I'm sure, to join in support of that, because you're quite right. Unless we make great strides forward in terms of renewable energy, we're going to be left in the same situation that we've been left in this year with events in Ukraine and other events, limiting our ability to provide reasonably priced power, and we've all seen the consequence of that. So I'm more than happy to do that.
Thank you, Leader. I've got one hand up with Councillor David Daniels.
Thank you, Chair. Just so I'm clear, Rachel, as I understand it, the increase in costs, in construction costs and materials, is that a big driver behind this becoming unviable as a project? Just so that's a clear line that we're coming out with.
Yeah, that was one of the factors, because they are significant. We are seeing project increases of 50, 60, 70% in some cases. The preferred bidder hadn't submitted a complete revised build schedule with those costings, because at first we were more concerned about what they were proposing to do with the site in terms of compliance with the ecology. But they had also indicated that costs were significantly no different because of the construction sector in particular, and it was at that point we just halted negotiations because it was just felt the scheme wasn't viable.
So prior to the pandemic and the fallout of the pandemic, this project, as I understand it, was viable. It was projected to deliver probably, when you were in negotiations, above what we were initially expecting. Is that also correct?
Yeah, that is correct, and also their tender was fully compliant and viable.
So at the point, so this is a frustration for me. At the point when members were saying, this is an unviable project and it's on a knife edge, it actually wasn't. At the point when they were saying that, there wasn't the economic turmoil that we're in at the moment. At the point that they were saying that, we had a climate change and biodiversity crisis that they had signed up to say that we are going to act on in a meaningful way. And this is part of that reaction. We have to do these sorts of things, and we can't let this project stop us from doing further projects like this when it becomes viable, because this is absolutely essential towards us meeting our climate change targets. And also, I will put on record that at the point that this came to Cabinet, I did make the point about energy security, which is now a point that's more pertinent than ever. We need more local, homegrown projects like this than ever, because until we do, we're more reliant on foreign energy or high carbon projects. So it's a frustration for me when members try and paint out that they predicted this, when all of this, a lot of this is based on the fact that we've had global turmoil as a result of a pandemic. So I think it's disingenuous to say, I said that this was on a knife edge a few years ago, when none of us could have predicted this. And if the members who say this say they can predict this, you could have blown the whistle slightly earlier. So it's a massive frustration for me, really, because it's absolutely useless. I told you so. When we absolutely need projects like this to go forward. And we cannot let it deter us from doing this in the future, because if we're going to meet our energy security goals and climate crisis goals, this is what we're going to have to do. So I'm massively disappointed in this project today. I'm massively disappointed it hasn't been able to go forward. But it can't let us deter us from our climate change commitments at all. And it should not make us scared to try these things again.
Thank you, Councillor Daniels. I don't see any other further hands up. Councillor David Thomas. Final question before we go to the vote.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Presiding Member. Yeah, I did say this in 2018, then again in 2020. So I said this quite early on in the early stages. So I don't understand what the member was on about there. But in 2018 is when I said that this business model didn't look like it was viable at all. And this project will not be able to continue in the future, because if it's down to costs, the longer we leave it, the more those costs will go up. So this project will never go ahead, as I said, in 2018.
Thank you.
Chair, can I just reiterate my point? My point was
I'm going to draw to a close there. We've had enough debate on this. Thank you, Councillor Daniels. And I'm going to take members to the recommendations on page 48 of the report. And members, can I ask members whether you agree with the recommendations? All those in favour? Are there any members against the recommendations? Don't see any. Are there any members who would like to abstain? No, that's unanimously carried. Thank you very much. Thank you, officers. Takes us to agenda item 11, adult recreation facilities on land to the northwest of Llantarnam Primary School, which is on page 49. I believe Andrew Osborne is the group leader is going to speak to this first. Andrew.
Thank you very much, Madam Presiding Member. Members, the report before you outlines proposals to develop adult recreation facilities on land to the northwest of Llantarnam Primary School. Just over £1 million has been secured in accordance with Section 106 of the Town and Country Planning Act 1990, which can be used towards improvement of the playing field from various agreements outlined in paragraph 3.3 in the report. Whilst the wording of the Section 106 agreements does not commit the Council to a 3G pitch, officers considered alternative options and concluded a 3G pitch is the most appropriate as it provides 52 weeks a year usage and can be used during inclement weather. The scheme will, of course, require planning permission, and due to its location, our development management team has confirmed it's likely will be required to include parking and access facilities as part of the development. It was also advised that a changing room ought to be included in the planning application, which could be implemented at a later stage, subject to additional funding being secured. So whilst it's difficult to estimate the likely cost of the scheme in the current financial market, preliminary estimates suggest the cost will be higher than the available Section 106 allocation. Consequently, funding applications have been submitted to the UK Shared Prosperity Fund and Sports Wales to cover any shortfalls. As a proportion of the Section 106 funding is only available to the Council until 2028, development of the scheme needs to progress, funded by some of the existing allocated Section 106 funds. So, in view of this, the Council is asked to approve the following: preparation and submission of planning and SAB applications, SAB being the Sustainable Urban Drainage Scheme Approval Body application, preparation of detailed design and tender documentation, procurement via the open market, as this will give us firm costs, delegated authority for the Chief Officer, Neighbourhoods, Planning and Public Protection to award a contract to deliver the project, subject to the cost being within the budget allocation, including any grants we secure. And finally, future management of the facility be delegated to the Chief Officer, Neighbourhoods, Planning and Public Protection, jointly with the Chief Officer, Education. So I open up to members now for discussion and questions, which I believe Rachel Jowett will assist me in answering. Thank you very much, members.
Thank you, Andrew. Anybody wishing to speak on this? Councillor Alan Slade.
Thank you, Madam Presiding Member. As I understand it, this has all come about because of a planning application made for what is now James Prosser Way. Now, if you look at the minutes, or the officers reported to that, certain promises were made to get Sport Wales Fields and Trust to change their mind, because it was their opinion that there was insufficient recreational compensation. So promises were given that 2 floodlit 3G pitches would be provided. So, and obviously now we're finding out that actually we're not going to do that. Now, I think this raises important questions for planning in the future, because what we're effectively doing here is making promises to consultees and members of the planning committee, and then not really following them through. So, in my opinion, that's almost like obtaining planning permission by deception. The developer's money has been in the bank for the best part of 5 years. So why has there been such a breathtaking lack of progress on this project? Surely officers were aware from the start that this money had to be spent by 2028 and that there would be negative effects caused by inflation.
Rachel?
Thank you, Madam Presiding Member. Thank you, Councillor Slade. You know, we've had lots of correspondence on this over the last year in particular, and I think I recall actually formally submitting an apology for the delays on this project and reiterate that to yourself and the residents today. The delays have come about due to particularly capacity within the engineering team to take forward all the proposed schemes, but we gave a commitment that this was going to be prioritised, and it is done so with the taking forward of this council report today, and as it demonstrates, we do remain committed to delivering a scheme on this site to take it forward.
Thank you.
But not the scheme that was described to those that were consulted. I don't know, so we're back. But the scheme you're now proposing is not in any way, shape or form the promises that were made to Sport Wales, Fields and Trust and our own Forward Planning Department, who expressed similar misgivings over the planning application. In fact, Councillor Thomas and I attended a meeting at New Inn in 2019, and we were told that we could have two pitches, maybe not both 3G, maybe a 3G and a grass pitch. So I think my point is here, I mean, it's going to be easy for some to say this is all caused by coronavirus, but the fact is, this project was never getting off the ground at all, really. I feel that I've been misled from day one, because we in good faith have been up to New Inn, attending meetings, given promises. This was going to be open by 2020 when the pandemic struck. Nothing's happened, and you know, frankly, I don't. Where do you see this leading the planning process? Because frankly, I just don't see that members can take anything promised at a planning meeting seriously.
Thank you, Councillor Slade. Do you want anything to add to that, Mitchell?
I think, would Councillor Slade mind if I picked up the specific questions on the planning committee in the discussion with my colleague Richard Lewis, and we provide a response in writing, which can then be shared with all members.
Thank you very much. I think that would be fine. Councillor Stephen Evans and Councillor Lucy Williams online. Stephen Evans.
I don't know whether Councillor Slade covered it, because his response was very garbled to us at home. I don't know about anybody else. But what I would ask, in 5.1 of the report on page 53, there's no mention of consultation with local residents to find out what they actually want. Can anybody explain why? Or have they been consulted?
And Andrew, did you want to pick that one up?
Yes, can do. As the report outlines, we haven't yet got to a planning application stage. And so this, I think before we can develop the scheme any further, then we would need to take it forward in the way that we've described with the planning application, which would be subject to wide consultation through the normal planning process.
Thank you for that, Andrew. Councillor Lucy Williams.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. It's just a point of clarification, and it might well be that my question will be much more detailed in the planning application, but I was looking at point 2 on page 60, where it says under a resilient Wales, and in point 2 it says think about how your activity will have regard to protecting and advancing biodiversity. Because I think, like many members have said, we always have to refer to the Future Generations and Wellbeing Act. So just to clarify whether that particular point and the whole principle of protecting that biodiversity will actually be detailed in any further planning application.
Andrew, do you want to come in on that, or Rachel?
I think what I would like to say about that is that, you know, in terms of the Future Generations Act, we need to look at lots of different objectives, and we need to provide formal recreation for our population, as much as also providing and maximising biodiversity. So in this scheme, the actual pitch won't occupy the whole of the green spaces in that area, and so I think it's incumbent on us to look at then around the area that's developed what we do to maximise biodiversity in that respect. So I think whatever we do, we're always looking to maximise the biodiversity opportunities of any particular scheme.
Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. Councillor David Thomas.
Thank you, Madam Presiding Member. Paragraph 5.1 lists those that have been consulted on this project. Lantern Community Primary School is not on that list. Officers have been frequently made aware of the traffic management issues on the site of Lantern Community Primary School, and thus far have been unable to offer any solution. Given the contribution that this project could make to either resolve or exacerbate the traffic management issues, perhaps officers can explain why the school hasn't been consulted.
Councillor Thomas, I did mention in the report that when we discussed with our development management team, they'd highlighted it's important that we look at access facilities as part of the development. So that is a proposal there to look at access as part of the design of the scheme.
Thank you, Andrew. I don't see any other questions. David Williams.
Thank you, Madam Presiding Chair. Just to say that, I'm not aware, obviously, as a new councillor, of all the background that's gone into some of this, but I am aware that there has also been some public interest in retention of this as a green space in its current form. And again, this is down to this, I think the officer, Andrew, explained very well, balancing up the different elements of the Wellbeing of Future Generations Act. I think I would only offer the suggestion that in going forward, an ecological impact assessment may be useful to do to actually demonstrate how the council is looking to, if you like, meet both those objectives in terms of environmental diversity, but also, what is clearly important, the recreational facilities for people in that area.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Thomas, did you want to come back in with your question?
I've got another question I have, Madam Presiding Member, if that's okay. This paragraph 4.7 reports that the decisions have already taken place with Torvine Leisure Trust with regard to the future management of the facility. Given the lack of consultation with the community primary school, despite local members telling officers that the school is interested in managing the facility, it suggests that a decision has already been made. So can you explain why Lantern Community Primary School is not being afforded the possibility of managing this facility when officers agreed this with Lantern ward members in a meeting at T-Blind in February 2019? Also, officers are perfectly happy for Nankelin Primary School to manage a similar facility, so why is Lantern Community Primary School so different?
Can I say, Councillor Thomas, no decisions have been made on the future management of the proposal. We're at an early stage of the scheme, and we would definitely be interested in talking to any party that's keen to manage the facility going forward.
Thank you, Andrew. Everybody happy with those? Yeah. Thank you. Andrew's already read out the recommendations, which are on page 54. Sorry, Councillor Slade.
Sorry. I'm particularly nervous about this business of the whole future management of the project. It seems only one party has been consulted. The school has been ignored, even though Councillor Thomas and I raised it many years ago. I would like to put a motion forward to delete paragraph 8.1.3 from the recommendations, that the decision to award or to agree a decision on future management be delegated to Chief Officer NSPPP and Chief Officer Education. I'd like that recommendation to be deleted, please. Second it.
Is it possible to find a microphone that works, please? People are online at home can't hear him. It's very, very garbled. I couldn't hear a word of what he said then. Is it
Thank
possible
you,
for him to
Councillor
move
Giles
seats?
Davis.
Thanks.
I was going to ask that point. Can you repeat which one of the recommendations you wish to remove, please, Councillor Alan Slade?
Certainly, Madam Presiding Member.
Recommendations are on page 54 for members to follow.
It's the recommendation on page 55. 8.1.3 agrees a joint decision on future management of the completed facility be delegated to Chief Officer NSPPP and Chief Officer Education. I would like that recommendation, or I propose that recommendation is deleted. I think there's plenty of time to make that decision further down the line. I mean, we don't even know if this is going to go ahead, this project.
Okay. You've heard that recommendation, members. Anybody wish to comment on that? Is there a seconder for that proposal?
I'll second that, Madam Presiding Member.
Is there anybody that wishes to debate this? No? Okay. We'll take it to the recommendations then. The recommendations are on page 54. We'll take the vote on whether or not we remove the last comment, 8.1.3 as an amendment. All those in favour of removing 8.1.3, please raise your hands now. That's 4 votes. Anybody against removing that amendment? That's carried. Any abstentions from that? Your amendment falls. So we're taking the recommendations as a whole, and these recommendations are on page 54 of the report. Members, do you agree the recommendations in totality for this report? All those in favour? Thank you. All those against? Nobody? Any abstentions? 2 abstentions. Thank you very much for that. That report is carried. Takes us to agenda item 12, which is the annual Social Care Director's Report to Council 21-22, which is on page 65. Welcome, Jason. Jason O'Brien, Chief Officer Social Care. Could you deliver your report for us, please?
Thank you, Madam Presiding Officer. Good morning, members. The purpose of this item is to bring to members' attention the content of the report provided as Statutory Director of Social Services on the effectiveness of social care for the period 2021-2022. I don't propose going through the annual report in any great depth, and hopefully members will have had the opportunity to consider its contents in advance. The report provides a summary of our current position, our future developments and aspirations, and some of the key challenges and risks that require ongoing focus and attention. What I would point out, of course, is that the period that this report reviews, that is 21-22, continue to be a challenging year with the commencement of COVID recovery, whilst still functioning with the confines of a pandemic. Obviously, this had a significant impact and has had a longer-term lasting effect on our communities and our staffing group. Our challenges have continued to be linked to demand across the Directorate, which, coupled with staffing issues in terms of recruitment, have placed pressure on our services. However, staff have stepped up to the table and continue to develop services to citizens, ensuring that the most vulnerable are safeguarded. There have been a number of key achievements and developments throughout 2021-22, and I'm pleased to report that within Children and Family Services, for the first time in some 7 years, we've seen a safe net reduction in our children looked after population, and we continue to focus on family strengths, risk management and safe decision-making to impact on that further. Within adult services, the tail end of 21-22 saw the opening of Tŷ Glas Ydolyn, which, whilst continuing to be evaluated, aims to provide an innovative approach to providing care packages and enabling and promoting independence for adults who may require ongoing care. We are currently reviewing some aspects of our adult services offer in order to promote greater community resilience and efficacy, particularly as it relates to domiciliary care packages. And we aim to continue to impact on our children looked after figures and overall level of demand within the Directorate as a whole. We become smarter with our use of performance to shape service delivery, and I'm keen that this continues to develop into and beyond 2022 and 23. While staff have continued to step at the table to deliver services, it's apparent that communities themselves have developed a great deal of resilience, and this is something I'm keen to continue to explore and develop in partnership with our Communities Directorate and across the local authority. and our future developments and aspirations within the Directorate aligned to the corporate planning and county plan. Our key challenge continues to be the level of demand within the Directorate against a national backdrop of difficulties within social care recruitment and a considerable level of uncertainty as it relates to the cost of living crisis. We have a strong, resilient staff group, a clear corporate commitment to enable the Directorate to achieve its ambitions and aspirations, and I'm enthused and excited to continue to lead the Directorate into 2022-23. It's recommended that members note the contents of the report and support the publication of the report. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Jason. Are there any questions to Jason on the annual report? Councillor David Daniels.
No questions from me, really. Just to talk to the adult services and housing element of it, I think, it would be remiss to not to acknowledge the hard work of staff over what has probably been the most difficult period of their careers. I think both adult services, as Jason sort of outlined, really, and housing have had significant challenges, different challenges, but, in particular with adult services recruitment and the burden left on those staff who are managing with an increasing burden of casework. These are issues that are absolutely fundamental. For me, adult services needs a radical rethink, and I can reassure members that on a national scale, I'm talking to Welsh Government through WLGA meetings and other such forums to advocate for a significant look at, because as I believe, the current system just isn't sustainable, and it isn't. And when we've got the prospect of further swinging public sector cuts on the horizon from UK government, I think it would be remiss not to mention that. That has a material impact on us. That has a material impact on councils in England more significantly, because they don't have that protection of the Welsh Government. But it also has an impact on us, because you can't solve an adult care crisis or a housing crisis in one country without also solving in the neighbouring ones as well. So I believe we'll be bringing more information to members in the coming weeks or in the coming months around both subjects. Housing remains a significant concern as well, and on that I can reassure members that I'm advocating at the same level for a radical rethink there as well, because we are being increasingly backed into a corner that I don't see a way out of. So I think there is some excellent practice in there that needs to be recognised, and the efforts of staff needs to be recognised, because, like I say, they are dealing with the most difficult period of their careers ever. And, I'm so proud of them for that. But I can't watch the efforts and the stress and the strain that they put under and not act on it and not shout from the rooftops. And I very much appreciate other members doing the same as well. So it's just for me to say thank you, really, to highlight that there are significant challenges that we're not shying away from, because you just can't. But that I am immensely proud of staff, and I think you all should be too, because they're absolutely delivering for people at the most difficult point, and they're absolutely keeping people front and centre of everything they do, in as much as they can do. And it's our duty as members and politicians above us to recognise that and reward that, and to basically to make their lives easier. So, that's me said. Any questions or any contributions would be very much welcome from members.
Thank you, David. Can I apologise? My phone's going off in my handbag. It'll hang up now in a minute. Can I just say, before I bring the leader in, that I think you've had a baptism of fire, Jason. This time last year, Keith was presenting this report, I believe, but what with COVID. But you've got some really exciting wins with the Glass of Dolan, the fact of the communities, the way our communities pulled together during the COVID crisis, and your demand with staffing. So on behalf of the Council, I'd like you to take back to your staff our firm thanks for all the work that they do. Leader, you wanted to come in?
Thank you, Presiding Member. I definitely agree with those sentiments. Every time I meet our social care staff, both in adult services, children's services, and indeed in housing as well, they inspire me with their dedication to to helping the people in our communities who often need the most help. So to thank you and your staff for that. I had two questions, if that's okay, Presiding Member. The first one was about domiciliary care and really reflecting the points that Councillor Daniels made about the sustainability of the system across the country, really. I see on page 5 and 6 of the report, that's pages 73 and 74 of members' packs, the two graphs highlighting the amount of care waiting to be commissioned and broken in the community, and also the total number of people awaiting new care packages. Obviously, the more of those there are, the more it impacts on people's lives, and of course, the more it impacts on other services like the NHS, of course. So it's really, as Councillor Daniels said, that the current system doesn't seem to be fit for purpose, and listening to the news in the last week, I don't think we can expect money to be the solution to that problem, because it looks like we could be facing further austerity from above our heads. So how do you think we can best work with our partners across Gwent to try and alleviate that situation and transform the domiciliary care sector from one that's characterised by low pay and shortages into one that's a proper career for people that can offer people better care? And my second question was about the links with the new Communities Directorate, because obviously early intervention and prevention is key, as has been shown in the great work that you've done with looked after children, for example, in making sure we try and manage that demand sustainably and get better outcomes for people. How do you envisage that relationship with the Communities Directorate working, and how as members can we try and contribute to that relationship across the Council?
Thank you, Leader. With regards to the domiciliary care issues, the figures that are contained there within the report, or the picture that's painted within the report, isn't peculiar just to Torfaen. I think this has been pointed out is certainly a regional and a national issue. We are highly dependent upon private providers to broker packages of domiciliary care. And going forward, I think that's something we need to review, the ability for private providers to actually be able to resource domiciliary care. There's a lot of work that's taken place regionally, where we are looking at things like fees and allowances for workers within the domiciliary care market. There's a lot of work taking place as well through the Workforce Development Board, the Regional Workforce Development Board, of which I chair, looking at how we can encourage and recruit and bring people into this market or into the workforce at this stage, and make this line of work more attractive and more in line with continued career development, and moving away then, I guess, to a certain extent from the financial element of it. So it's an ongoing challenge. One of the other things that we're looking at, particularly within Torfaen, is a rethink of our front door for adult services, with an aim to have some greater level of control as to what comes through the door, and then that level of need as it escalates, which I think links nicely then into the second question around our links with the Communities Directorate, and very much building that relationship with the Communities Directorate so that we are, as I mentioned within some narrative earlier, we are building upon that community resilience and enabling communities to resolve some of their own issues and some of the demand that exists within the communities, and able to resolve that themselves as well. In terms of, obviously, the Communities Directorate is relatively new and developing, but the links that we have within social care and within the Communities Directorate are already very strong. For example, the work we're doing, as I mentioned, looking at the adult social care front door, the Communities Directorate is very heavily linked into that, in enabling us to map through customer journeys and looking at how customers and service users come to the adult services front door, really, to prevent that from happening and prevent escalation.
Leader?
Just as a supplementary, if it's okay, Presiding Member, I think members will have a wealth of knowledge in their communities about how community organisations and the strength of our communities could be utilised to help with social care. So I wonder if it's worth having some form of members' seminar jointly between communities and social care at some point this year to try and discuss some of those issues and how we can maybe be conduits in that?
Absolutely, I think that'd be massively beneficial, and both myself and I'm sure Dave Leach would welcome that opportunity.
I agree, that's good. Dave Daniels, is that the legacy hand, or do you want to speak again?
Yeah, no, I just wanted to cap off the sort of political element to Anthony's first question around Domcare. So, I mean, going in order. So it's a UK-wide issue that needs to be resolved on a UK-wide level. But unfortunately, on current sort of developments would indicate that that's not likely to happen. I mean, the increase in, not that that was the way I would have done it, but the increase in national insurance has been reversed. So that money was earmarked for social care to help the social care sector. So that's no longer forthcoming. It looks like we're going in reverse in the sense, as I've mentioned, around a return to austerity. So it's not likely on a UK level that we are going to get the change that is needed. Welsh Government, I've already mentioned that I'm advocating on that level because, you know, I think this is ultimately where it needs to come from, you know, on a Wales-wide basis. Regionally, I'm working with partners in other local authorities. So now we have Labour leads in all 5 local authorities in Gwent in the regional partnership board. This is the forum that basically oversees social care and health. And I'm agitating and pushing as hard as I can to initiate a conversation about us looking on a regional basis around rethinking domiciliary care, because Torfaen alone can't reform adult social care. We can't. It's tenuous whether we can do so on a regional basis, but I think we should be exercising every single mechanism that's available to us. And I'm agitating on a national and a regional level to look at alternative models of delivery. And we've got a meeting coming up in the coming months where we'll be talking about this very issue. And I'll be agitating for us to be as open-minded as possible about in-house or, you know, a not-for-profit organisation, because I think that ultimately these are... I'm not ideological about this, and I promise you I'm not, because whatever works, works, but this just doesn't work. You know, we aren't ticking those important boxes around paying staff what they really deserve to be paid, giving them the worth and the career progression that they deserve and that they would aspire to. And I don't see that being ever achieved in the current system that we've got at the moment. I'm being very frank on this because we're in very, very dire circumstances, and I think it's important to be frank about these things. So, on a regional, to answer your question, on a regional basis and a national level, on a regional basis, I am agitating for us to explore every model possible that might deliver for people and for staff. So, hopefully that caps off the political element of your question, Anthony.
Thank you. Any comments on that? No? Councillor Lucy Williams.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I wanted to refer to the point that Jason was making about trying to sort of lessen people going through the adult services front door and confirming the idea from Anthony of having a seminar. We paid a recent visit to T Glasdorlan a couple of weeks back, and I think the model there of staff actually visiting service users to prevent the necessity of care packages was very impressive, and could be very much looked at. So it's a simple suggestion that if we do have a seminar, that we also include representatives from T Glasdorlan to explain that model, because I think that's something definitely worth looking at. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. Councillor Daniels, is that a legacy hand? Or did you? Yeah, okay, thanks very much. I don't see any other hands up. Oh, Councillor David Williams and Councillor Janet Jones. David Williams.
Thank you, Madam Presiding Chair. Can I just say that I think this was an excellent report. I know these things are difficult to do. It was readable, informative, and I commend the use of quotes and tables and pictures, etc., because it did make it real. And I would urge that it's really important that we have those testimonies of the people who actually receive the services to say how important it is to them and how impactful it is for them. And for me, that was one of the most important parts of the report. I should also point out the real positive that I know you've put a lot of work into, Jason, in terms of the progression in terms of the fall in the numbers of looked after children, because this has been a long-standing issue and I know a lot of work will have gone into that.
Thank you. Did you want to comment, Jason?
No comments, just a thank you.
Thank
you for those comments.
Councillor Janet Jones.
Thank you, Chair. Just to say thank you and congratulations, Jason, for the report, and a big thank you to all your team. The visit to Glastonbury was absolutely state of the art, and I just wish that we had the finances to have more facilities like that throughout the borough. It's a really credit, and we'd like to learn more about it, please.
Thank you. That concludes the questions. Thank you, Jason, for your report. Can I ask members to check the recommendations, which are on page 66 of the report? And can I ask members whether they agree with the recommendations? Thank you. Anyone against the recommendations? And any abstentions from those? Thank you very much. That's carried. Thank you very much, Jason. Thank you, members. And takes us to agenda item 13, the nomination to outside bodies in the year update, October 2022, which is on page 117. Nancy Salkeld, Democratic Services Project Officer, could you deliver your report for us, please?
Yes, thank you. Good morning, members. This is just a short report to ask members to note some changes to outside bodies since the annual general meeting in May. We've got two changes that I wanted to report to you. The outside bodies are Torvine Leisure Trust and Congress Theatre Management Board. Councillor Richard Clark has stepped down from the Leisure Trust and Councillor Dave Thomas has stepped down from the Congress Theatre Management Board. The two members that have been nominated as their replacements are Councillor Rose Seaborn for the Torvine Leisure Trust and Councillor Stephen Evans for the Congress Theatre Management Board. That's all really I need to say about that. The recommendation is on is 6.1, and the recommendation is that Council notes the changes to the outside body nominations detailed in this report for the remainder of the 22-23 municipal year. Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy. Can I ask members if they agree with those recommendations? All those? Anybody against? Any abstentions? That's carried. Thank you very much. Thank you, Nancy. Thank you, members. Takes us to agenda item 14, the motions on notice. We've got one motion on notice from Councillor Alfie Best. Can you move and explain your motion for us, please, as showed on page 121 of the agenda? Thank you, Councillor Best.
Thank you, Madam Presiding Member. This is a motion backed by the RSPCA, introduced with two main aims. The first is to stop the giving of live animals as prizes on county borough land. And the second is to write to the Welsh Government, urging an outright ban, as they have in Scotland. This has already gone through 5 other councils in Wales, and I'm hoping that members will support it. It's just a short one. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Best. Do we have a seconder for that motion? Thank you, Councillor Yowell. Anyone wishing to debate? Councillor Alan Slade.
Thank you. Just a quick question. Are we aware of any land under the ownership of Torvine County Borough Council where this is going on, where live animals are being given away as prizes?
I don't think we can answer that. The motion is put forward and seconded, and can I take a vote on that motion, please? All those members in favour of the motion, please show. Thank you. Anybody against? Any abstentions? Thank you, Councillor Slade. This abstention recorded. That's carried. Thank you very much.
Sorry, I don't know if it's my place to come in, but I'm not aware of any Torwine Council land that this would apply to, but it's worth having in case any proposals come in the future.
Thank you, Councillor Best. I'm sure Councillor Slade can get that answer outside the meeting as well. So thank you. We've got another motion which is from Councillor Elizabeth Haynes, but Councillor Elizabeth Haynes sends her apologies this morning. So Councillor Anthony Hunt has kindly offered to take this motion on her behalf. Councillor Hunt, can you move and explain the motion on behalf of Councillor Haynes for us, please? And this is shown on page 123 of the agenda.
Thank you, Presiding Member. As you said, I've been asked to read this motion on behalf of Councillor Elizabeth Haynes. The rationale is that Baby Loss Awareness Week is the 9th to 15th of October this year. Its aim is to light up important buildings throughout the country to raise awareness of pregnancy and baby loss. For the last 2 years, Council has supported the motions submitted on behalf of the resident. So again this year, she's asking the Council to agree to light up the same 3 areas across Torvine during Baby Loss Awareness Week, and I'd like to propose that we do that in every subsequent year as well. So the motion is, this Council agreed to light up 3 buildings across the Borough, the boathouse at the Boating Lake, the Civic Centre in Pontypool, and one in the north of Torvine, with pink and blue lights during Baby Loss Awareness Week from the 9th to the 15th of October 2022.
Do we have a seconder for that motion? Thank you. Thank you. Anybody wishing to debate that? I think it's agreed. We've done it in previous years, and I think it's good to put it in the calendar for future years too. So thank you for that. I'll take a vote on that motion then. Oh, sorry, sorry, members. I've got Councillor David Daniels flashing his yellow hand. Councillor David Daniels.
Please. Right, well, I was going to propose an amendment to say that I think we should adopt this every year. I think it shouldn't take a motion. I think it should be something we do just by default every single year. So as simple a words as you possibly need, that we do this every year.
Councillor Daniels, I think the leader included that in the motion. So
sorry.
Yes, so we're taking a vote on the annual event taking place. Thank you very much for that. We'll now take the vote. Members, all those in favour, please. Thank you. Anybody against? Any abstentions? That's carried. Thank you very much for that. Thank you, Councillor Haynes, for your motion. And thank you, Leader, for reading it. Agenda item 15 is members' question times. There are 2 members' questions today, and I'll refer to my sheet. Councillor Janet Jones has the first question, please.
Thank you. In view of our concerns about off-roading and the imminent review of the World Heritage Site, what funding, if any, is there available to support the Gwent Police Operation Harley initiative? Operation Harley is an incentive which allows people to seize assets of the off-roaders who come into our area from Birmingham, Bristol, etc.
Thank you, Councillor Jones. Councillor Peter Jones, Executive Member for Corporate Governance and Performance. You're going to answer this, I believe.
Yes, Presiding Officer. Thank you, Councillor Jones, for the question. My answer is the Council is seeking grant aid from the UK Shared Prosperity Fund to support multi-agency coordination to prevent illegal off-roading on commons and coordinate the delivery of joint initiative to tackle landscape crime across the whole of the Gwent area. If successful, the funding could potentially be up to £50,000.
Thank you, Councillor Jones. That would be brilliant. I understand that there was an operation on the weekend nationwide, and they managed to pick up several off-road bikes in the Cwmbran area. But this is something really good news because it's destroying our environment. And it's something we're all passionate about, not only in Blenavon, but I'm sure in the other parts of Torvine as well.
Thank you for that question. And the answer, Councillor Jones?
Thank you, Janet, for those questions. I would say that, in addition, we are working with Gwent Police, Natural Resources Wales, landowners, local farmers and other partnership agencies to target the illegal use of off-road vehicles. We have arranged for Gwent Police to sit on the World Heritage Site Steering Group, and we also maintain a presence on the MP-led Gwent Roundtable Partnership Group, ensuring we have an active role in helping to coordinate police operations on the ground. What I would say is our Community Safety Unit are fully engaged on this and will continue to do so.
Thank you. I did meet the relative police officer at a steering committee a few weeks ago, and I know that through South Wales, the South Wales Police Force, they have managed to obtain quad bikes, electric bikes, to help fight these off-roaders. So I appreciate that we are all working together to get a good solution.
Thank you, Councillor. We have a question 2, which is Councillor David Thomas.
Thank you, Madam Presiding Member. Since my last question to you on this, Councillor Clark, could you provide members with a brief update on the outcome of all meetings with the local authority and Eston inspectors with regards to our secondary schools? I think members would like to know what progress is being made.
Councillor Clark.
Thank you, Councillor Thomas, and thank you for your continued interest and support in this matter. There's been one meeting with Eston regarding one of our secondary schools since July, which focused on Cwmbran High School, and that took place earlier this month. Obviously, summer holidays, etc., it wouldn't have been sooner. This was a multi-agency meeting involving the local authority, Welsh Government, the AAS, Eston, and the school's new head teacher and deputy head teacher, together with the interim executive board. These meetings provide a forum to support the school in its improvement planning and delivery. The meeting has reviewed the recent outcomes of the monitoring visit that took place last term by Eston, staffing issues and amendments to the support plan for the school, as well as the need to consider when a shadow governing body may need to be constituted in the forthcoming year. In talking about meetings with Eston, I would like to take this opportunity to update members on the post-inspection action plan and the recent improvement conference that took place not last week, the week before. The post-inspection action plan, the draft, has been prepared and shared with Eston, and it was the focus of the discussion at the improvement conference I referred to. The conference was attended by the leader, the chief executive, myself, the chief officer, the managing director of the EAS, and both the deputy education chief officers, in addition with 3 colleagues from Eston, including our local link inspector and a representative from Audit Wales. The conference provided us with an opportunity to discuss in detail with Eston the steps we've already taken since March and how those fit into our draft post-inspection action plan and the 4 recommendations coming out of the inspection itself. We haven't had the formal response yet and recommendations, but I think it's fair to say that we had a true and long conversation looking at how the plan addresses those 4 items. We, again, without having the formal letter advising us how we can look deeper, points that we've taken from it are that we can make the success criteria more explicit and more time specific. So what we're going to do by when, in a nutshell. It's more complicated than that, but in a nutshell, it's that. And how we're going to address that, we'll revise the PAP to address that specificity, big words, I can't cope with them, and the team plans that we're currently doing in-house in any event, and the golden thread that wraps between those 2. We will have LALI, which is the local authority link inspector meetings, where we will go over those and evidence that that is the case. And we also need to, and I know it sounds similar, but it is a different point, we will also need to clarify the time scales and the process around the performance management, the so what question, etc. I don't know why I said etc. then, I'm sorry. Officers are already beginning to deliver the actions in the plan, as I stated, and we will continue to keep Estyn updated. One of the things I found useful in the meeting with Estyn was, this isn't the point we've just come to discuss this with you. We have been doing with March, so we produce work. But nobody's home. Oh, it's come back just as I said that. Typical. Where was I? It'll go to scrutiny as well, the action that we have taken to March. So we haven't just been nasal gazing since March. There has been a hive of activity going on, which we will continue, and we've assessed that activity as we've gone on. I've mentioned the Education Overview and Scrutiny Committee. Our response now will be a large part of their work to monitor that we're doing what we say we're doing as well. Just in passing, I referred to the new head teacher at Cumran High School. In answer to your last question, I congratulated Elizabeth on the works that she did and wishing her success in her retirement. I advised you that a new head teacher had been appointed, and Natalie Richards has taken, I was going to say control, but that's the wrong word, has been appointed to her post at Crossy Gaelog, and she's hit the ground running, I'm informed by governors. And I'm happy to announce today that Mark Jones has been appointed to the headship of YGG. He'll support the school as he is a sport head at the moment for 3 days a week before he substantially takes his position up in January. That's a bit of an aside, but I thought I'd announce that.
Thank you, Councillor Clark. Councillor Thomas?
Yeah, thanks, Madam Presiding Member. It's not a gotcha question. So I did come to see you earlier, and I do respect you in your position as executive member. But do we know roughly when this action plan will be published so we can take a look?
I think when Estyn advises of the, any advice that we need to do anything that's glaringly wrong in there, etc. We've got a broad idea because it was a very open and frank conversation. Once that's the case, then I think we'll be able to share that publicly. And I believe that parts of it are going into scrutiny anyway tomorrow. So it'll be in the public domain then. But formally, the whole plan, as soon as we get the confirmation from Estyn, it's public. I've got no problem with it being public as soon as appropriate. I'd rather get on with the work now and do it.
Thank you. For members, information scrutiny is discussing 2 of the recommendations tomorrow in their committee. Thank you. That takes us to agenda item 16, which is the date and the time of the next meeting. For your information, members, the next meeting is scheduled for Tuesday, the 25th of October, 2022 at 10 a.m. Thank you, members, for attending the meeting. Have a good day.